Hello, ladies. This is Teresa Burton here, and I am your virtual sister friend, and we're here to kick off another week of wisdom and empowerment that has been inspired through years of marriage, family, ministry, and entrepreneurship. It's my prayer by joining me each week that you receive some life-changing nuggets that you can add to your toolbox on this journey that we call life. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel that you can receive notification about new footage and new content that's been released every week. I also would love to engage with you, so feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. So our question for the week is, how do you approach decision making in your life? A, seeking divine guidance through prayer. B, talking to a friend, a pastor, or a mentor. C, analyzing the pros and the cons. Or D, do you dive on in? So go ahead and comment in the comment section. A, B, C, or D is your answer. Now I'm going to give you my answer to the question at the end of the episode, so you want to hang around and see what my answer is going to be. Well, this episode is episode number 3, the power of self-awareness. Somebody say the power of self-awareness. I don't know about you. This is one of my favorite subjects, one of my favorite tasks to do. And when I went through the process of being more self-aware of myself, it did wonders for my life. So 3 key points I want to release to you on tonight. Number 1, embracing self-reflection. Number 2, recognizing your emotional triggers. Number 3, aligning your actions with your value. Those are our 3 key points that we're going to release on tonight for you. So it's story time. When I think about becoming self-awareness, it brings me to me when I first got married. It was the first 3, 4, 5 years in our marriage. I came from relationships that men that was aggressive, men that was loud, men that cussed. And I got familiar with that. Even though it was like a year and a half before I met my husband, I was not in no relationship, but the previous relationship still creeped up. And so certain things my husband would do, it would trigger feelings. It would trigger emotions on me, but I didn't understand why. At the time, I wasn't digging to figure out, okay, why did I respond that way? But over time, I did. Me and my husband, we've been married 22 years. We only literally argued, in the 22 years we've been married, maybe 5 or 6 times. My husband is very low key. He just, when he says something, he means it, and he don't have to say it 1, 2 times. You just know not to ask him again. A blended family. So when we came into the marriage, I came with 2, he came with 2, but we raised our children as our own. So you could not tell the difference because they all my girls. So during that time, I literally was, still trying to get very, very familiar with this relationship and this marriage, and it was different. It was different to any other relationship I was in prior to, and so he walked different, and I was walking different. But I was used to knowing what the direction that we was going to. If we was in a discussion, that I knew your thoughts. But my husband at the time, he would literally get quiet. He's a very quiet guy, and he would shut down. I wasn't used to that, so it triggered feelings in me of me not knowing what's going to happen. Me being used to men that argued and be very aggressive, I did not know how to read him. So it triggered for me feeling like I need to know what's going on so I can make decisions and things of that nature. So I was a strong black woman, and guess what I did? I would make statements doing good before I met you, so you can just leave, blah, blah, blah. And I would say all this crazy stuff. And it wasn't because that's how I felt. It triggered. I didn't know how to read him. And one time he told me, he said, why do you do that? And I'm like, do what? Why do, when we get in a discussion that we're not in agreement and I be quiet, you go in this mood, you could do it by yourself. You was doing better before you met me and all this kind of stuff like that. I was like, I don't know. I didn't know how to answer that question. Well, a couple of days later, maybe a week later, I figured what the answer was to that question. It was a defense mechanism. Because I wasn't familiar with the style of communication, the communication I was used to was arguing, cussing, and fighting. here I am in a whole new relationship a year and a half later after being in a relationship, because I was single for a year and a half before I met him, because I wanted to give myself time to heal. But I wasn't in another relationship. So a lot of times you don't see or feel certain things coming up until you actually got to get rubbed in that area. So what am I saying? I had to become self-awareness of myself on my feelings of fear. I was fearing that he was going to walk out because I was not clear how to read him. So it triggered a feeling. So I responded in a way that was going to protect me and my emotions. Did not realize I was creating a bigger problem because I wasn't self-aware of my response. I wasn't self-aware of the fear that I have, and I surely did not tell him at the time. Well, over time, I ended up telling him. And and he told me, and one of the things I need to hear that he said to me, he said, "You stuck like Chuck. I'm not going anywhere. So no matter, so go in your little tantrums or things of that nature, but you stuck with me." Even though he said stuck like Chuck, that's all I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear that he wasn't going to walk off. I wanted to hear that it wasn't getting too hard, that he was going to walk out. I never had a person to walk away from me, but because I can tell and read their moves, I knew that, but I couldn't read his. So it triggered a feeling of being dropped. And it goes back to being abandoned by my father. So all that feelings that I was having, I displayed in a different way. So that's my story. I would like to give you a scripture for this episode tonight to complement this episode. Psalms 139, 23 and 24 says this: "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxiety thoughts. See if there's any offensive ways in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting." Did you hear that say? Psalms is a prayer to God. Examine our hearts and thoughts. It is an invitation to God to reveal what he sees in our hearts. And if we can pray to God to reveal to us, we need to know what's going on in us. We need to be aware of self-awareness. The psalmist is seeking guidance to follow a path that leads everlasting goodness and peace. God wants us to live in peace. He wants us to live in his goodness. That is our portion. But if we're not self-aware of ourselves, we won't realize when something is triggered or when we experience something, we respond in a certain way. So we want to be very much better aware of ourselves so we can show up a little bit different. When we are aware of ourselves and self-aware of ourselves, we can show up in our marriage a different way. We can show up as a parent a different way. We can show up as a vessel of God in a different way. We can show up as a sister and a friend in a different way. The power of self-awareness will empower you when you're aware of you. A lot of times we're aware of everybody else, but we're not aware of ourselves. We're aware of what people do and their mood swings, but we're not aware of ours. We are not aware of things that trigger us. We're not aware of emotional stuff that we brought into our relationships or into a situation but we're looking at other people. I know for me, once I became self-aware of me, it helped me in my relationship. I'm going ahead of myself, but it helped me in my relationship. One of the key points I want to make tonight is embracing self-reflection. Example, take a few moments during your day to reflect on your thoughts and your emotions. Sit in it for a minute. Don't always be so quick to move on your emotion. Won't you sit in the moment for a moment so you can actually really evaluate what are you feeling? Where is it coming from? Is it you or is it you've been triggered? If you've been triggered by a moment or a thought from your past, is this person really harming you? Is this person even, so what they're saying, meant to hurt your feelings? And sometimes if we do not sit down in that moment and really evaluate and take a moment to think about it, we'll make some wrong moves. And then another example to do embracing self-reflection is journal. Some of the things I did, I started journal in my beginning stage. I started journal about my experience and identifying the patterns. And when I literally would sit down and journal how I feel about stuff and my response, I actually saw a pattern of behavior. When you journal your experience, how you felt, and your behavior, you should be able to map out, do you see a pattern? You want to identify any patterns that you may have. Key point number 2, recognizing your emotional triggers. You need to know what your emotional triggers are. And a lot of times we are not paying attention. We're just responding and not taking time. That's the reason you got to sit in your thoughts. You got to sit in. I'm not sitting in your thoughts to sit and ponder and get more extra mad. You doing this intentional about sitting in your thoughts to do evaluation. What are you feeling? Where is this coming from? Is this a real thing right now? So key point number 2 is recognizing emotional trigger. Example is understanding things that consistently provoke you in strong emotional response. Like there's certain things that we should be able to look throughout our day, look throughout our week when we're talking to people. What strong emotion that pops up when a person says stuff or when they do certain things? What strong emotions? And those things is what you want to revisit. If you start feeling yourself being strongly emotional about certain things, that's where you need to sit there and really tap in right there. Where is this coming from? What's up with this? You want to become self-aware of you so you can show up in the relationship, in the conversation a different way. You don't want to just be reacting to stuff. You want to learn how to pause and respond, not react. Many of us are reacting to situation and you wondering why that the conversation never gets. There's no benefit in the conversation. There's no outcome comes out in the conversation. Example number 2, identify specific words or action that triggers an emotion reaction out of you. Remember when I was using an example for my husband, me and my husband having this conversation, he get quiet, he shuts down, and that triggered an emotion out of me. It triggered that I went straight into fear. What is he thinking? I don't know how to read him. Is he going to leave? I associate his quietness with him leaving. Why? Because I had somebody that really in my life that was a parental figure that left me in the midst of quietness. I needed help, he was a quiet gentleman or a quiet person, and the way he moved, my husband reminded me of that situation. Now, I never had a man just walk out of me, so I couldn't understand. That's why I couldn't understand why I responded the way I did, because I never had a man walk out of me. But I realized when I did some digging, when I had peeled back some layers, guess what? My father walked out on me. And so that reminded me of that. I need to know what you're thinking. These relationships that I had prior to, they were loud. I can pinpoint what's about to happen. And I'm the one that kind of always was in control and left because I was able to pinpoint. Well, I can't pinpoint him out in the beginning. So you want to identify certain words or certain actions that trigger a strong or emotional reaction out of you. When you become that, you are able to sit in a relationship and act in a relationship in a better way. And I promise you, over time, I was able to start responding to my husband, his quietness, and his need a moment to process what our conversation was and get back with me. I don't have to connect it to him leaving. I didn't have to connect it to a fear of mine, because that was a defense mechanism that I was using by going into these mode. I can do bad by myself. I was doing better before I met you. Let the door hit you with a good little split. Your child, I was a mess. I took that brother through some emotional roller coaster ride, all because of fear. Did you hear me? But once I became self-aware of myself, I was able to put a cease to that, and now we can move forward. The last thing I want to drop on you is key key point number 3 is aligning your actions with your values. When you understand what your values are and you are very self-aware of yourself, now your action becomes line up. So if your family is a value to you, that's how you hold your family such a value, then you're going to move a certain way. If your relationships, if it's with your husband or it's with your friend, if it's with your pastor, if it's with your mentor or with your sister, you want to show up a certain way. So your action is going to line up with your core values. Do you have core values? Do you know what they are? Have you listed them out? Is that your foundation of how you move? The example I want to give you, ensuring that your daily decisions and action align with your core values. That's one of the things that helped me along the way. When I realized I came to self-awareness myself, I realized what things are important to me, and I wanted to show up different. I don't want to keep blaming things on other people when it's really me. Just because they said something or did something to trigger a feeling does not mean that's who they are. It triggered me. So I had to learn how to move. Now, there was people can trigger things because of what they did. Now I'm not talking about husbands and wives that, your husband cheated or did some distrustful things in the relationship. And so now when he moved a certain way, it triggered that feeling. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is that sometimes the people that we're with now, when they move a certain way and we don't quite understand it or is very familiar with some past relationship, they are not the one that broke you. Those are not the people that hurt you. And a lot of times we'll allow something that they do trigger us and we react in a certain way. You're not responsible for what broke you, but you are responsible to heal yourself. You are responsible to show up in a better way in your new relationships, in your relationship with your children, in relationship with your friends, in relationship in your leadership role. You are responsible to make sure that you're in a good place. So ensure that you got daily values. Your daily decision is in alignment with your core values. What is the benefit of you being self-aware of yourself? Number 1, it improves your decision making. Do not know when you are self-aware of yourself, it improves your decision making. When you understand how you move and why you respond or why you react a certain way, then you can actually put an action plan together to not to react, but to respond. Or maybe not to respond at all, knowing that it's not them, it's me. I have a saying that I say with my mentees and my members of my church. I say, I know when it's me, I know when it's you, and I know when it's us. That means us it's a little bit of both us in this situation that's making the situation bad. But I also realize when it's the other person and they're taking something or they pulling straws out of nothing, or if it's me, if I'm walking in my feelings. When you are self-aware, you're going to improve decision making. Number 2, it's going to enhance your relationship. I could truly say me being aware of myself has helped my relationships because I know how to distinguish what is going on. I'm not putting everything in one basket. I'm not bringing in past experiences into this basket, in this current basket. Number 3, it increases emotional intelligence. Listen, when you are self-aware of yourself, you increase your emotional intelligence. You're able to intelligently discern different things and what's going on. You're able to communicate in a different way. You're able to be calm when you communicate. You're able to relate and connect with people in a whole different way. So increasing your emotional intelligence is all because you are self-aware of yourself. And last but not least, a greater fulfillment. It's going to be hard to fulfill your purpose if you're not self-aware of yourself. I don't care if it's in business, ministry, your family, or your husband. You can't fulfill your full potential if you're not aware of you. We will self-sabotage. We talked about that before. We will self-sabotage our relationships if we're not aware of ourselves. I hope and pray what I said to you, that the nuggets I gave you today is something that you can add to your toolbox as you on this journey that we call life. Now, as promised, I was going to give you the answer to my answer to the question, how do I approach decision making in my life? Well, my answer is A, seeking divine guidance through prayer. Now, I wanted to cheat for a minute because I do talk to a friend and I do definitely talk to my mentor. But for the most part, I'm going to go to God and seek God through prayer. I'm going to talk to my husband, and I may piggyback on a friend or definitely my mentor. So that's my answer. I hope and pray once again. I really pray that I said something to empower you, to inspire you, and to add you to your toolbox. Remember, your journey is unique, and through Christ, all things is possible. Until our paths cross again, I pray that you embrace every opportunity to grow and to thrive. Stay empowered.